Stocks are choppy as an impending US tariff hike clouds sentiment. Mid-caps bear the brunt of the selling, with realty and healthcare being the big drags.
The RBI's MPC votes to keep rates and stance unchanged even as it sees core inflation staying stubborn. The pause, however, is a relief for banks as it guards against any further pressure on margins, says SBI.
Bajaj Auto's first quarter results meets muted expectations. Realizations are more than anticipated, even as weak motorcycle sales are offset by strong growth in the electric vehicles portfolio.
India's second custodian, National Securities Depository, lists on the BSE at a small premium to its offer price. The MD tells CNBC TV18 investments in technology and improving customer experience are key focus areas.
And US President Donald Trump tells CNBC that he will hike tariffs on India in the next 24 hours. On being quizzed on Russian imports by America, Trump said that he does not know of it and will check and get back.
Hello and welcome to Business Lunch live from the CNBC TV18 Motilal Oswal studio. I am Vamakshi Thoria and with me is Hormaz Patakia. Well, Hormaz, a very good afternoon to you. The markets do seem a little nervous given the kind of developments that are taking place, right? We're counting down to the tariffs, announcement that may come through from the US president. So not a great day for trade so far, but we're off the lows.
We're off the lows and numbers coming in thick and fast. Numbers of Bharat Forge on your screen. Net profit is marginally below expectations at 339 crores, a poll of 362. Revenues too at 2105, again marginally below the expectations of 2173 crore. So Bharat Forge now has slumped to the lowest point of the day. EBITDA too is lower than expectations of 571 crore. Remember, these are standalone numbers and we are comparing that on a year-on-year basis. So we'll keep an eye out on these numbers for Bharat Forge with more details emerging as we go by. But of course, all eyes will be on the announcement that Donald Trump plans on making at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 2 a.m. IST. So it promises to be a sleepless night for it. Will be interesting to see what is the announcement that is anticipated, because there is no clarity on that as of now. But numbers also came in from Bajaj Auto. Numbers also came in from Divi's Laboratories. And though Divi's Laboratories has moved to the lows of the day, now 3.5% lower on that stock. And Bajaj Auto as well. There was a muted expectation for the quarter for Bajaj Auto, and it has more or less met those expectations, back into the green after that initial slump. We're also counting down from some major results from Trent, from Pidilite, and a lot of other PSU names, Vamakshi.
Well, absolutely, Hormaz. Power-packed day it's turning out to be. But let's begin Business Lunch by putting the focus on US President Trump, who has threatened to increase tariffs on India within the next 24 hours. In an exclusive interview with CNBC, Trump said, and I quote, "I think I am going to raise India's tariffs substantially in the next 24 hours, end of quote. That's not all. President Trump raked up the Russian oil issue yet again and accused India of fueling Moscow's war machine. On Monday, in a post on Truth Social, Trump, while announcing that he would impose substantially higher tariffs, had criticized New Delhi for financing Russia's war in Ukraine by buying what he called massive amounts of Russian oil. The Ministry of External Affairs has already hit back, calling the targeting of India unjustified and unreasonable. India has promised to take all necessary measures to safeguard national interest and economic security. Let's listen in to Trump's latest tariff rhetoric against India.
With India, what people don't like to say about India, they're the highest tariff nation. They have the highest tariff of anybody. We do very, very little business with India because their tariffs are so high. So India has not been a good trading partner because they do a lot of business with us, but we don't do business with them. So we settled on 25%, but I think I'm going to raise that very substantially over the next 24 hours because they're buying Russian oil, they're fueling the war machine. And if they're going to do that, then I'm not going to be happy. But India went from the highest tariffs ever. They will give us 0 tariffs. And they're going to let us go in. But that's not good enough because of what they're doing with oil.
Now, the Indian government is calling out the United States and the European Union for its trade with Russia. Now, this after US President Trump threatened higher tariffs on India, blaming it on India's energy imports from Russia. Shri is here with the tariff tussle and what India had to respond to it.
Well, let's address President Trump's latest tariff threat to hit India with a substantially higher tariff rate. Why? Because he says we buy Russian crude, but we also sell Russian crude for a profit, in his words. Now, India has hit back at the US for threatening those higher tariffs and a penalty which still there is no clarity on. In a social media post, President Trump said, and I quote, "India is not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, they are then, for much of the oil purchase, selling it in the open market for big profits. Because of this, I will be substantially raising the tariffs paid by India to the United States of America." That is the Truth Social post from President Trump. Now, responding to President Trump, the Ministry of External Affairs has said the targeting of India is unjustified and unreasonable, and the government has promised to take all necessary measures to safeguard national interests and economic security. But here's what we need to focus on. What do the facts say? India began importing crude from Russia because traditional supplies were diverted to Europe. Remember, this was when the Ukraine war started. In fact, India at that point in time had went on to say that the US actively encouraged imports of Russian oil by India as it strengthened global energy market stability. Why was this the case? Because remember, back then there was a sharp spike in oil prices, and oil prices, Brent crude specifically, hit $137 per barrel. This was in March 2022. This was after Russia invaded Ukraine. Now, cut to November of 2022. US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said, and I quote, "The United States is happy for India to continue buying as much Russian oil as it wants, including at prices above a G7 imposed price cap mechanism, if it steers clear of Western insurance, finance and maritime services bound by the cap." Now, this was Janet Yellen in November of 2022, saying that the US supported India's decision to buy Russian crude, in fact, encouraged it. Let's go a step further. In February of 2024, US Assistant Secretary of State Jeffrey Pyatt acknowledged India's role in stabilizing global energy markets. He said, and I quote again, "India has played a key role in efforts to stabilize global energy markets through its purchase of Russian crude." Now, this is again the position of the US administration, not the Trump administration, but the US administration nevertheless. Now, just a few months ago, in May of 2024, US Ambassador to India, Eric Garcetti, admitted that India bought Russian oil because the US wanted somebody to buy Russian oil, and the US allowed the purchase to ensure oil prices do not go up globally. New Delhi also called out the US and Europe for criticizing India's trade with Russia when both the EU and the US themselves are indulging in trade with Russia. The ministry said Europe's bilateral trade with Russia in 2024 was worth over 67 billion euros in terms of both goods and services trade, worth over 17 billion euros in 2023. So you can see that there's been a significant increase. This, the Indian government says, is much more than India's total trade with Russia in the same period. Now, India is also calling out the US for importing uranium hexafluoride for its nuclear industry and palladium for its EV industry, along with fertilizers from Russia. That's not all. India has meanwhile been increasing its energy imports from the US. So remember, Trump's call to action saying that India must buy more from the US. Well, India has been doing just that. In fact, just in the first quarter of this financial year, US energy imports are up 114%. The share of US crude in India's import basket has risen from 3% to 8% in the month of July alone. Now, India is estimating a 150% rise in energy imports from the US this year. So that is where things currently stand as far as India importing energy from the US is concerned. The important question to ask also is that why has the US not sanctioned Russian oil? Remember, there is no sanction on Russian oil. There are sanctions on oil coming in, for instance, from Venezuela, from Iran. There is no sanction on Russian oil. So India's position is that it has been dealing with Russia as per the global norms and as per the price cap mechanism that has been put in place at this point in time. That is the position for now.
Well, the US President Donald Trump has also been threatening tariffs on the pharma sector. He announced that tariffs on pharmaceuticals could eventually reach up to 250%. Let's listen into that.
Pharmaceuticals will be putting a initially small tariff on pharmaceuticals, a half year's maximum. It's going to go to 150%, and then it's going to go to 250%. because we want pharmaceuticals made in our country.
Now, Donald Trump has also on multiple occasions voiced his contempt with the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell over his refusal to cut interest rates. Of course, that is his discontent. On this issue, he told CNBC that he has narrowed the field of potential Fed chairs to 4 candidates, a list that does not include Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
2 Kevins are doing well, and I have 2 other people that are doing well. Look, it's in the end, there are numerous people that are qualified. Everyone on your phone right now, in terms of at your beautiful studio, would be very qualified, in my opinion. You guys are better than most of the people that do it for a living. But I watched a lot, actually. No, I think that it'll be 1 or 4 people. Well, I love Scott, but he wants to stay where he is. I'll take him off because I asked him just last night, is this something you want? Nope, I want to stay where I am.
Well, on that note, let's slip into a very short break. But as we do that, here is a reminder for our viewers. Unlock a world of exclusivity, expertise and influence. Become a member of CNBC TV18. Access our premium members-only experience on cnbctv18.com. The membership includes access to CNBC TV18's flagship events, interactions with our journalists, along with curated studio tours, e-learning sessions and masterclasses, and curated lifestyle benefits.
Welcome back. Now, SEBI Chairman Tuhin Kant Pandey, commenting on the news reports on curbing weekly expiries, said that these reports are speculative in nature. Listening to what he said in response to our colleague Yash Jain's question.
When it comes to options market, SEBI's time and again also spoken about cutting down on the excessive speculation and increasing cash market volumes. First of all, what are your views on the excessive speculation in the options market? Also, what has been communicated from the finance ministry? And there were a few suggestions that we were understanding of removing weekly expiry and making it fortnightly or even monthly. Could you help us understand if that is also under consideration?
I'm not aware of any such communication. I think, Harsh, you have been running some story. I think it's your own speculative thing. And what we have been saying is quite out in the open. Whenever we do anything with respect to anything, I've said it before that we need some reforms, but what will be the nature of those reforms and how it will be treated? As per our practice, we always discuss with the markets. We always put out consultation papers.
Well, moving on then, let's focus in on another big listing today, NSDL. The company listed at a 10% premium to its IPO price. Earlier, in fact, our colleague Rachna spoke to the managing director Vijay Chandok about the company's outlook. Let's listen into that conversation.
NSDL is across the entire spectrum of capital markets. It's just that we are very strong in the when it comes to the institutional side with very strong market share numbers. But when you look at the retail and the HNI side, actually it's important to highlight that there is close to 67-68% of market share in terms of custody value in the retail side that is actually sitting with NSDL. We certainly will be increasing our tech outlays as we have moving into the current fiscal year. But the more important thing is that the tech outlays would go into broadly 3 or 4 areas. One would be capacity building, because clearly we are seeing more and more growth in the markets. We are seeing the need to expand capacity to take care of newer investors and more investors coming into the markets, plus more products are also getting added to the markets. We are clearly seeing opportunities to invest in automation. Today there are lots of tools which have started coming using new age tech. We are seeing that it is important. We are an operation-centric company, so bringing more and more of these tech tools, new age tech tools for automation is an area of focus. And the fourth, and I think an equally important area amongst all the 3 I spoke, is customer experience. Clearly, that's an area that requires heavy lifting. That's an area that requires more investment.
One listing of the day, NSDL, 14% higher now compared to its issue price of 800. And the other listing of the day, of course, Shri Lotus Developers listed at a 19% premium to its issue price. That was 150 rupees. It was built on to those gains now, 27% higher now on that stock in comparison to its issue price. We spoke to the management of the company as well on the new orders that they have in their pipeline. Listen to what they had to say.
This financial year, we'll be launching about 6 to 7 projects. This is what our pipeline is right now. So total altogether, about 16 projects would be within 1.5 years. About 16 projects will be starting. Another 5 years, we have got tremendous potential in the micro markets where we are already working. But we are very much open to open up the new micro markets. But all those micro markets, we are looking at a much higher per square feet revenue. And maybe after some time, maybe 5 years, 7 years, yes, we will be open to go to any of the other areas also. But we'll be always in the ultra luxury market.
Well, a stellar listing from Shri Lotus Developers, up almost 27% for now. But let's slip into a short break then. Remember to tune into the all-new CNBC TV18 Prime, bringing you insights from policymakers, business leaders and economists shaping both the world and India's future. CNBC TV18 Prime decodes global shifts and their impact on Indian businesses, giving you unparalleled insights. Tune in to CNBC TV18 Prime at 12 noon for the Global Reset, at 1 p.m. for the Big C, and the Global Lens at 8:30 p.m. Welcome back. Just a quick update from Uttarkashi. At least 4 people have been killed and more than 50 remain missing after a cloudburst that triggered devastating flash floods in Dharali village on Tuesday. Personnel from the Army, State Disaster Response Force and local police managed to rescue 70 people by midnight, despite persistent rainfall and challenging terrain that significantly hampered the ongoing operations. Efforts are underway to clear blocked roads along the Uttarkashi-Harsil route after multiple landslides triggered by heavy rainfall disrupted connectivity in the region. Uttarakhand Chief Minister chaired a high-level meeting to review the rescue and relief operations are underway in Uttarkashi's Dharali village.
Thoughts and prayers with the locals after this devastating incident. But with that, we call time on this edition of Business Lunch from Amakshi and me. Thank you for watching. We're counting down to some more important results in just a few minutes from now. Mid-cap radar on the other side.